Hey everyone, Editor Nikki here to introduce you all to the 100 episode special of the Carla Rand Show. To celebrate this momentous occasion, me and Carla have picked some of our favorite episodes from the past and have put them all into an epic highlight reel for you to enjoy. All episodes used will be in the description below. Thank you guys for hanging out with us for 100 episodes. So without further ado, let's get at it.
I have a question about that. The idea of denying yourself. Because here's what I kind of believe, okay? This is what I've always believed, is that it's Jesus, others, you, right? So God goes first, then others, and then you're kind of at the back burner, and you don't really think about yourself. You don't really focus on yourself. You just kind of deal with life. Just deal with life and don't attract attention. Don't be complaining. Just handle it, you know? But the problem is that works really good when everything's going well. But all of a sudden, when things get really tough, and all of a sudden you haven't dealt with maybe your emotions, you haven't thought through it, then all of a sudden things can really come up. And all of a sudden it's like, oh my goodness, I haven't really thought about myself. Or maybe like a lot of moms, right? They get so into serving their family, they let their health suffer, they let their, their mental health suffer. They don't know how to meet their needs in a healthy way. So I'm just kind of wondering, could you speak into that a little bit? Where's that kind of balance, if you will, between not prioritizing yourself, denying yourself, but also taking care of yourself? Is there a balance there?
Oh, yes. And that's what Jesus would, because he concentrates on the disciples, and he deals with their family connection first. He's dealing with them first before it's number 4 where he finally turns to how they are treating others. So, no, I think we need to concentrate on helping ourselves grow so that we can in turn help others. You're not going to help others until you have figured out and dealt with yourself. And Jesus does that. It's a long way before he starts zeroing in how they're treating others. Mm-hmm. So yes, he calls us to love the Lord our God with all our heart, soul, and mind and strength, and our neighbor as ourself. But in his model of disciple making, he zeroes in on them specifically. This is what you need to address right now. If you're going to be effective, you have to start at base 1.
And you said something really interesting, Lorelie, when you were kind of describing your journey. You said that once you no longer had anybody paying your rent and your food, and you were basically you called it enabling. In a sense, they were enabling you to continue with the drug addiction because you had enough money to buy your drugs and still feed yourself and, have a roof over your head. That's really interesting because we don't hear a lot of people talking about enabling. We talk as a society and as a culture and, just in general more as how can we help these people? How can we help these people? What would you say about that? Sort of the balance between enabling and helping.
Yeah, well, addiction can't thrive without an enabling system. You always need someone to help. As I was getting sicker and sicker and sicker, the consequences were getting worse and worse. So I would accrue DUIs. I'd need someone to pay my lawyer fees. I'd need someone to pay my fines. I'd need someone to pay to get my car out of the tow facility. I'd need someone to pay my rent because my purse got stolen again. It was all so many lies. But, and I turn to, we turn to our families first because they're usually the people that will facilitate that enabling. But sometimes families get help and then the enabling stops. And then, sometimes we start stealing or women may start prostituting, and there's all sorts of things that will enable addiction. But, right now, where I live on Vancouver Island, it's really, really sad and scary to see what's happening because our government is the enabler now. And I know I'm going to get a lot of heck for this term, but I don't know how to describe it any better. When I got clean and sober, the only reason I got clean and sober is because everybody stopped. They stopped taking my calls. That all doors to me closed. I knew I was loved. it wasn't that I wasn't loved. I was loved, but my family did the hard thing, which was the right thing. My dad by now was sober. My mom had gone to Al-Anon. My partner was getting therapy for himself. And they all said, we love you and we will not enable your disease. But if you want rehab, if you want to go to treatment, we will provide that for you. So every single door closed on me. I couldn't manipulate them anymore. They refused to enable me. And it wasn't until that moment that I was standing on my very own for the first time, where someone wasn't paying my bills, paying my rent, buying me food, buying my BS stories, that my addiction became real to me. You see, as long as somebody else was cleaning up my mess and my consequences, my addiction wasn't real. It wasn't a problem. What are you talking about? You guys are exaggerating. You're blowing it out of proportion. So when all enabling stopped for me, recovery began. The blinders came off and I was forced to see what my addiction didn't want me to see. And that was, I was in big trouble.
I by no means, I am a scientist and I'm an environmentalist, and I am not in opposition to diversifying and to renewables. I fully believe that we as a world have an energy crisis. We are short on energy and we have too many people on this planet. And in Canada, we are so fortunate to be a first world country and to have the ability to heat the homes and the cars that we drive in this cold country that we live in. But we live in an amazing country. We do not have to deal with things that, countries like India and China have to deal with. I heard also in this presentation from Chris that in New Delhi, they had to close down their airport because they burn coal as an energy source, and they cannot land their planes because there's so much smog in the air. And there's hundreds of thousands of people, babies dying and asthma and respiratory illnesses because they burn coal, because they do not have clean energy. I'm not saying oil and gas is the ultimate solution. It's not sustainable like renewables are, but it is necessary. And we as Canadians can provide this clean, relatively clean, good energy to countries like India. So if we could only figure out how to get our oil and gas to market, we could be doing a lot better as a country. So that was a long story.
Well, that's good. Well,
I hope I covered it all.
Well, what is it going to take for us to get our oil to market? Because that seems to be the biggest problem here. Why is this not happening?
Yeah, it's the red tape. It's the political red tape and the regulatory requirements to get our pipelines approved. And when we go to try to get a pipeline approved, the general population is watching the worst of the worst on the news. The 1% to 2% of the protesters that are really opposing this, when we hear about First Nations in opposition, yes, there are some, but a lot of them are supportive of oil and gas and are employed by oil and gas and want things to be approved. So we really it's just so typical of media. You just see the worst of it. That's all you see. You don't see the best of it. And so we're not publishing good news stories about what we do, that we've pumped millions of barrels of crude oil with no incidents. I mean, there are some, but considering how much volume is moving, it's not that bad. And it's way better than any other options. And it's just, we have to get into people's minds that we're not getting off of oil and gas in the next century. We aren't. We need all the energy, and we need to do it all better, always. And investment in research on how to do it better is always essential and will be essential for the rest of our lives and continuing on into newer generations. But we need all the energy right now. We are having an energy crisis. So if we could figure out as a planet how to get our resources to the places that it needs to go, we as Canadians and Albertans would be doing a lot better, I think.
It's the more you tell me I can't do it, the more I'm probably going to want to do it. So if you really want to motivate me, don't tell me I can't. Just tell me I can, and it'll be easy for me, and then I probably won't do it. You know what I mean? So it's just, I think everyone's kind of motivated in different ways. But if you're not naturally wired to be motivated by people that criticize you, then it could be very difficult, right? So I think it's like, if you are being criticized, take that and say, hey, can I use it for fuel? Instead of being like, oh, they're probably right, I'm a failure, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean?
A lot of people don't like criticism. And I think in this culture today, most people don't.
Yeah.
I think it's really kind of sad because you can use criticism a lot of different ways. There's criticism from people that actually care for you, and they see you doing something that is not good, and they tell you about it. And I value that. There are people that do not value that. There are people that find that offensive. There are people that find that you don't approve of me, and they run away from it. There are also people that take that, and it might smart for a moment, right? It might hurt for a moment. They go, he might be right, or she might be right. Maybe I should. There's a reason why they put their neck on the line to say this. They probably weren't trying to be a jerk. Mm-hmm. They probably just have the guts to say something to me. So I value that, because I just get so tired of people that just tell you what you want to hear. Oh, you want to go do it. Go do it. They don't, there's nothing in it for them to like, why? What is your purpose behind doing this? You want to make more and more money. Can you tell me why? And a lot of times they don't really need it or want it. They want to impress somebody else, or they're trying to make up for a shortcoming somewhere else. And then they go, well, I really don't care about that. What do you really care about? And then they tell you, and then they go, well, thank you so much for doing that, because otherwise I would have done a whole bunch of things I didn't want to do just to prove something wrong to something I don't even care about. Mm-hmm. Didn't make any sense. Yeah. So criticism, I think I look for it. As long as the person has my best interest, it doesn't offend me. And I wish more people could see that.
Yeah.
I have been a Christian since I was a kid, so I knew the teaching that we have, that as a Christian, I'm a child of God, I'm a follower of Jesus, so that's my identity. And somebody mentioned to us once that the longest distance in the world is the distance between your head and your heart. Is that you know something in your head and you can't get it from between your ears down to your heart. Mm-hmm. And I suddenly realized that all that time I was telling people about being a child of God and knowing that I'm a child of God, and well, okay, do I believe it? Am I going to start acting like it? That is my identity. The mission was great all during this time. Our friends were patient and helpful. Well, like I said, we got counseling for this, both of us. Because my wife had to learn how to handle this guy who didn't know who he was anymore. And I think I am in a much better place. I was going to say, I think I am, but I am in a much better place now. My career doesn't define me. My job doesn't define me, whether I have that job or not, because it's something I can lose, I discovered. It's something that could be taken away from me. My family doesn't define me, because they can change and I can even lose them. I can't have that as my defining factor. It has to be something more permanent than that. So my identity is as a follower of God, as a follower of Jesus, because that's something that can't change, and that's something that I can rest on, because everything around me, my health, my family, my career, those things can all flux, and we found that out this year very, very much all through this 2020. But what I'm basing it in, what I always should have been basing it in, was this idea that God is the only one, his opinion is the only one that matters. And once he is satisfied with who I am, then everything else can work itself out.
When it comes to weight loss, Dan, because there's a lot of people that come to me for weight loss, what would you say, what should somebody do if they want to lose weight? Maybe like, what's your top 3 tips, or however you want to take this, just take it and roll with it.
Sure. So if somebody wants to lose weight, they first have to understand that psychology is of equal importance to physiology, in that you need to be able to consciously have the awareness to understand that consistency beats intensity every single time. One workout doesn't get you in shape. 1 week of training doesn't get you in shape. 1 week of dieting doesn't get you in shape. Biology responds to adaptations over time, and the over time is months and even years at a time. So whenever you take on a new nutrition plan or a new training plan in the hopes of losing weight, the very first thing you have to ask yourself is, hey, do I see myself following this diet plan 6 months from now or 12 months from now? If the answer is no, then it's not the diet plan for you, because you're going to do the exact same roller coaster that has led you to the point that you're going to try this new thing all over again. People lose a lot of weight, and they tend to forget that if you don't incorporate sustainability into your plan, then you might as well have not lost the weight. And that's the kind of North America and Western society's problem, is nobody has a weight loss problem. People lose millions of pounds every single year, but all of these people have a maintaining the weight loss problem. No one has a weight loss problem, but everybody has a maintaining the weight loss problem. And that's because they over-respect physiology and under-respect psychology, because you can understand all of the metabolic steps involved in energy balance, creating energy, burning fat, creating the right workout. You can understand all of that, but if you can't maintain it, does it mean anything at all? Absolutely not. So that's where a coach comes into play. And that's what I would recommend most people who are interested in fat loss do, because you want a coach. A research study will never replace a coach. A macro calculator will never replace a coach. A blog post will never replace a coach. A coach is what's going to allow you, or at least a good coach, I should say, is going to focus on life transformation rather than body transformation. Because any moron can go in a 50% caloric deficit for 4 weeks and lose a ton of weight. But that will only get you a sweet before and after picture that you can post on social media. Awesome. But what's really ugly is the after picture, where you are right back to your before picture, or even worse, within the next 6 months. And that's because you viewed your body as a project rather than viewing your body as a partner. Your body is the partner. It's the vehicle that you have to stay within for the rest of your life. And if you're going to be involved with a partner for the rest of your life, you better build a damn good relationship with that partner, psychologically and emotionally. So things like the scale can't throw you off. Things like crash dieting should never be an option for you. Why would you crash diet your partner? You know that's going to have a rebound effect. Any action has an equal and opposite reaction. If you don't cheat for a month, then you're going to have a cheat fest for a whole week, and that's going to put you back to where you are. If you crash your metabolism for a month, well, then it will crash right back at you, and make sure that even in a calculated caloric deficit, you're not going to lose any more weight because you've destroyed your metabolism over the past month. This all comes back, not even to physiology, it comes back to psychology, because you ultimately create the decision that manifests itself in the ripple effect in your physiology. That decision comes first.
Since I began my recovery journey, not only have I put down like the alcohol and the substance, but I've also really learned to start loving myself for the first time. You know, I can realize now that I was trying to fill a void. You know, I was trying to pour substances, drugs, alcohol on it to make me feel complete. I was trying to have a man make me feel complete because I didn't know I could do that for myself. And now I do. You know, now I know, like, getting clean and sober was like the biggest act of self-love out there, and probably the biggest thing I could ever do to love myself. And it has been a gift that keeps on giving. And it not only to me, to my whole family, you know, it's a ripple effect. Like, the ability I have to talk to my own kids and my own family about this shameful secret of addiction and alcoholism. The fact that I can talk openly on a podcast and my kids can call me up and say, "Oh my goodness, Mom, I didn't know yet that you did blah, blah, blah." And this, it's opened doors, and the communication I never had as a teenager, even with my own family today. And so my recovery and my healing, my growth is all about bringing those secrets and shame of addiction out into the light, asking for help, admitting when I need help, admitting when I'm struggling or having a bad day or a good day, you know, showing up and being the light when somebody else is down, but also being able to say, like, today I'm not doing good. Today Today, I'm dealing with something so emotional that I wish I could just have 6 drinks and forget about it, but I can't do that anymore. So being able to show up who I am authentically on a good day or a bad day is huge. It's huge, not putting that mask on that everything's okay and just keeping those secrets deep inside, because our secrets are what keep us sick, and bringing them out to the light diminishes that shame.
So what would you say, what would you say first to the men right now who are listening and they're kind of like, hey, like, are you calling me out, buddy? Like, what's going on here? Maybe they're feeling that, or maybe they're like, you know what, that's not me. But in any case, what would you say maybe the guys that are feeling a little bit like squirming in their chairs right now?
I think what every man needs to do first, and this is a very difficult thing, I think in general, and I think in our society, is figure out what being a man means to them. I think previous generations, life forced it on them. My grandfather dropped out of school when he was in grade 7 or 8 to start trying to make money for the family, took a laboring job, tried to build up in the construction industry in Toronto to be able to provide for his family. So responsibility was thrust on him. But for my definition, what I believe a man is, and this is, again, my advice, is for men to figure out what it means to them. For me, it is the willingness to carry the burdens that life puts around you. It's the willingness to put something on your shoulders and carry it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that's the basis of masculinity, the willingness to pick up responsibility.
Right, rather than trying to get out of it.
Completely, because becoming a woman, from my perspective, and I know very little about that, a lot of things are thrust on women. Women become women because nature brings them into womanhood. Women, when they have kids, it's very hard to get away from the responsibility of being a mother, not only because you grow the kid and birth the baby, but because your body keeps the child alive. And children have a distinct bond with their mother, which I think is a great thing. But the responsibility of parenthood seems more built in for women. Whereas for men, it's more of a choice. And I think as society teaches women that they can be more and more things, they can do more and more things, I almost see an excitement over the history of feminism for women to pick up responsibility. And I've seen men go the opposite way on a large scale.
So what's the answer then, Craig? What's the answer? So you said first, like, find out what it means to be a man to you. But beyond that, what would you say? Maybe as a society or as an individual, or kind of however you want to take this.
Okay. So first, this might be surprising, but I am in no way qualified to solve this massive problem, but I will give you my opinion.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a great idea if we could have more conversations about masculinity as it stands as itself. I started one of these on my Facebook. It was very interesting because a lot of people brought up what men need to be in relation to women, in relation to what they perceive as a patriarchy in our society. And it was interesting to me because I don't see any conversations generally about what it means to be a man as its own institution. Whereas we have a lot of conversations, but I think have been incredibly valuable to women about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a feminist, what it means to move women forward in society. And I think it would be insulting to most people if every time we had those conversations, we brought in, well, what a woman should be is a wife like this. You'd get crucified if that's how you started every conversation about women. Well, what women should be is maybe this, but also here's what they could do for men. People wouldn't have that conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't do the same thing about masculinity. I think men need to start having that conversation largely amongst themselves, but with women as well, but largely amongst themselves. What does it mean to be a man? If we can open that conversation, I think we can start unraveling where that needs to go.
And I'm a little older than you, Carla, but I rather suspect we may be linked at the hips when it comes to trying to come up with a plan, a strategy that can be executed to protect Alberta's interests and Alberta's prosperity and Alberta's freedoms and rights. So.
Yeah, and I appreciate that, Dennis. I think for a lot of years, I know I've talked to some people that are, probably your age and younger too, but especially the older generation, just saying, look, I keep hoping that somebody out in Ottawa will get elected that will actually give Alberta a fair shake. And it just doesn't happen It just never seems to happen. And you're basically indicating why. Now, you mentioned 5 reasons why we can't change the Constitution. I believe you said 5. Could you share briefly what those reasons are? Like, why can't we change the Constitution so that Alberta can get a fair shake through the whole, like through Canada? And you're saying it's just about impossible.
Well, it's not just about, it actually is impossible. Okay, and here's why you can't change the Constitution. Now, this is not a specific reason, but I'll just give you an example. There were 2 attempts to change the Constitution previously. One was Meech Lake, and the other was the Charlottetown Accord. Both of those failed. But in any event, in order to change the Constitution, let's take ending equalization as a metaphor for ending any egregious program that adversely affects Alberta's interests, such as the development and transport of our natural resources, etc. So in order to change the Constitution, to open and change the Constitution, you would have to have a majority vote in the House of Commons. Then you would have to have a similar majority vote in the Senate to end equalization or any other egregious program. And then you would have to have 7 of 10 provincial legislatures representing 50% of the population. I repeat that. 7 of 10 provincial legislatures representing 50% of the population also would have to vote in favor of opening and changing the Constitution to benefit Alberta. Now, knowing that Quebec is the beneficiary of 2 of every $3 of equalization, what do you think the prospects are that Quebec would go along with it, much less the other six additional provinces? The 4th issue has to do with Quebec also believes that it has a veto. Even though Quebec never signed the Constitution, it has come out publicly and stated, we have a veto. And then finally is the issue of the Supreme Court. Constitutional challenges, which undoubtedly would occur as a result of ending equalization or any other egregious program, how are they decided? They are decided by the Supreme Court. How is the Supreme Court structured? Well, 3 justices are appointed from Ontario, 3 are appointed from Quebec, 1 from the Maritimes, and 2 from the West. So how do you think any constitutional challenge would be adjudicated by the Supreme Court? It sure wouldn't be in favor of Alberta.
For me, I had to get over the fact that I felt like I had to clean myself up a little bit before I went to God. Like, okay, I can't go to God in my complete mess. Like, I got to at least clean it up a little bit. So it's like, okay, well, until I can clean it up, I shouldn't go to God. Well, I can't clean it up on my own. So then I don't go to God, or I go to God in little spits, like just really quick, like, okay, I'll quickly pray and read my Bible. And then I get out of here because it's really uncomfortable. I had to just go to God and say, God, I'm a mess. God, I'm angry at you right now because you let this happen. God, I'm upset. Like, and just like let it out, like just pour it out. And I feel like, you talk about that attachment, then like, oh, God actually, he knows it anyways. Just let it out, and that was huge for me, just to really be able to say, God, I'm upset at you right now. And know that he's not pointing his finger and say, you shouldn't say that. Go clean up your act. Right.
Absolutely. And again, can you hear the condemnation and judgment that is not of God? Mm-hmm. Where we have these misconceptions about him, because he says, come. And if we confess our sins, he's faithful and just. It's like, I used to try to, like you were saying, I used to try to clean myself up first too. But it's like, wow, that really makes the whole work of the cross a sham.
Yeah.
Because if I could clean it up, he wouldn't have needed to die. Mm-hmm. So I'm really saying I don't need you again, rather than going, you're right, I need you. Mm-hmm. I can't do life. He never created us to do life alone. Mm-hmm. So he's inviting us to participate with him. And he says, I take you by the hand. He wants to walk with us through this journey. And so as we begin to identify, what am I feeling in my body? And as you begin to identify the feelings, can you then from the feelings begin to go, okay, what are the beliefs or the messages I am believing as a result of those feelings? So it's like, if I'm feeling powerless, what is the message? That I have no strength? that I can't do it. If I'm feeling lonely, that no one cares about me. See, so it's good to kind of identify what is a feeling purposeless. That my only value is based upon me being able to get lots of work done, or having a certain job, or having so many people follow me. Do you see where immediately, if I'm feeling purposeless or alone, like all those things that can make us feel down, it's like, what am I believing? And are these things true? So this is where Paul gives some really good instruction in his word in 2 Corinthians 10. He says, though we live in the world, we don't wage war as the world does. He says, the weapons we fight with are not the weapons of the world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. Some of the things, the addictions and the ways that we have believed, they have become strongholds in our life. And he says the only way we can demolish them and take hold of them is by taking every thought captive and making them obedient to Jesus Christ. Anything we keep in darkness, it's going to stay hidden there, and it's going to have power over us. So as we bring these things into the light to Jesus Christ and say, you know what, this is what I'm really believing. You know, Carla, when I started taking my thoughts captive and going through this exercise, I was mortified. I was horrified. And I'm like, I really believe this. So I could quote all sorts of scripture. I knew all sorts of scripture. But like we were saying, from here to here, that exodus, to go from here to go and start admitting, obviously, by the way I'm living, by the way my body's feeling, this is what I really believe.
Thank you for tuning into the podcast today. I absolutely love that you joined us. I love being able to record these, and I love our guests. It's been so much fun. So thank you. Please like it, share it, comment, do all of the things that you feel like you want to do if you enjoyed this podcast. I really, really appreciate that. And this podcast has been brought to you by my company, Power Fitness Online. So everything that we do locally with our workouts, with our group nutrition coaching, and with all of the other fun events and stuff that we run, we put all of that online. So now you can access everything, even if you're not locally, don't live in our area. So my coaches and I and all my staff, the whole team, we are putting so much work into these workouts. We're filming 5 fresh workouts every single week so that you never have to do the same workout twice. We're also doing group nutrition and personal nutrition coaching so that you get exactly what you need. And you know what the best part is? It's the community. The absolute best part is just knowing that you have the support, that you have the encouragement, that you have everything you need to succeed. So go to powerfitnessonline.com.